You've probably never heard this before, and there's a reason for that. There's a practice so powerful, so ancient, and so quietly transformative that when you tap into it, something deep inside you remembers. Not a memory from childhood or some past experience, no. This is a soul-level memory, a remembering of who you truly are beneath the noise, the identity, the fear. And that's exactly why it's been hidden. Because when a person remembers who they are, not what they do or what they've been told, but who they truly are, they become unshakable. They no longer bend to fear. They don't need external validation. They don't play the game. And that makes them free. And freedom in a world built on control is the most dangerous thing there is. So here's the deal. Over the next few minutes, we're going to explore why this practice was called forbidden and why it still holds the key to something extraordinary. But you have to listen carefully, because if you skip just one piece, you could miss the entire message, and with it, the chance to finally reconnect with the part of yourself you've always known was missing. Let's begin. The soul hasn't forgotten. You have start diving into the wisdom of ancient civilizations, and something really strange starts to happen. You'll notice that people who had no way of contacting each other, no flights, no phones, no shared language, somehow spoke about the exact same things. About the soul, about consciousness, about forgetting. From the temples of Egypt to the mountaintops of India, to the stone sanctuaries of Greece, they all pointed to one haunting truth: humanity has forgotten who it truly is. In ancient Egypt, Thoth, the god of wisdom and hidden knowledge, spoke of what he called the vibrational fall. Not a fall from grace, not a fall from the heavens. This was deeper. He said that when a soul enters the body, its frequency lowers, like a divine light dimmed by the density of the physical world. The soul forgets not because it's broken, but because it's buried. Not erased, just covered. And that forgetting, it's not total. In fact, that's the worst part. You still feel it. You walk through life with this strange ache, this quiet sense that something's missing. A kind of echo inside you that never stops, but you can't quite name. In ancient India, the rishis called this forgetting Sarah. They said the soul doesn't actually need to learn anything new. Everything it needs is already within. What we're really doing is remembering. And to remember, you don't need more books. You don't need to argue about beliefs. You need to go inward, through silence, through vibration, through practices that strip away the noise and let the truth rise up again. In Greece, the Orphics believed that the soul was imprisoned in the body, but they didn't say that as an insult to life or matter. They said it as a reminder that true freedom doesn't come from escaping life, it comes from remembering your immortal nature while you're in it. Their rituals were meant to shake the soul awake, chanting breathwork, altered states, not to escape reality, but to see it clearly. The funny thing, these cultures didn't copy each other. Their teachings emerged separately, but their truths lined up perfectly, like pieces of a puzzle that had been scattered across the world, waiting for someone to piece them back together. The truth was never meant for everyone. But here's where it gets interesting. None of these teachings were made for the public. You couldn't just walk into a temple and find a step-by-step guide to awakening. Why? Because they knew something we've forgotten. You can't just hand sacred knowledge to someone who's not ready for it. The danger wasn't in the practice itself. The danger was in what would happen if someone used it without the strength to face what it reveals. Because real remembering, it's not pretty, it's not romantic. It breaks you open. It strips away everything you thought you were. It shatters your safe little stories. It makes you realize that most of your life was spent performing roles just to fit into a world that never really saw you. And that's why this technique was protected. Not because people wanted power, but because they respected it. They didn't want to control the knowledge, they wanted to protect those who weren't ready for it. Because this isn't about collecting cool spiritual experiences. This is about dying without dying. Dying without dying. When a person entered those ancient temples, whether in Egypt, India, or Greece, they weren't just going in for a ritual. They were going in to die, not physically, symbolically. They were guided into a state so deep, so still, that the consciousness disconnected from the body for a time. And in that disconnection, they crossed a threshold. They were guided not with words, but with frequency through a world most people never even know exists. And over there were no gurus, no gods with glowing swords, no instructions. Just the self, the part of you that's always been watching, always known, always waiting for you to remember. That's the secret. No one teaches you who you are. They can't. You just remember, because you've always known. But in this noisy world where you're constantly fed fear, comparison status, shame, that inner voice gets drowned out. And the role you play becomes more real than the soul that's living it. What you see, you can't unsee. During these crossings, initiates didn't receive new knowledge. They received themselves. They recognized symbols they'd never studied. They felt truths they'd never read. They didn't learn anything, they just woke up. And once that happens, once you truly see what lies behind the veil, you can't pretend you didn't. The illusion of separation, of fear, of needing to earn your worth, it all starts to unravel. You return to your body, you walk back into the same world, but you're not the same. And you never will be again. Not everyone made it back, but let's be honest, it didn't always go smoothly. Some people couldn't let go. They clung too tightly to their false identities. When the truth started to rise, they got scared. Their ego, terrified of losing control, fought back. And some got stuck. Not fully awake, but no longer asleep. They'd tasted the truth, but couldn't live it. They returned confused, fragmented, and sometimes even more lost than before. And this is why preparation matters. This is why the sacred was kept secret. Because not everyone wants the truth. They want comfort. They want validation. They want to be spiritual, not to live spiritually. But the truth doesn't care about your comfort. It comes for your masks, your coping mechanisms, your carefully curated identity. And if you're not ready, it hurts. The real work begins breaking the false self. So what do you do before even thinking about crossing the veil? You prepare. Not by learning more, but by unlearning. By clearing out the inner clutter. By peeling back the layers of everything you're not, everything you've been told, everything you've believed just to survive. And Thoth didn't sugarcoat this part. He said the first barrier is not out there. It's not in the world. It's in you. And it's not a demon. It's not a curse. It's not some mysterious energy blocking your path. It's the false identity, the voice in your head that repeats day after day who you think you are. But here's the twist, that identity, it's not you. It's a character, a costume, a carefully constructed role you've been rehearsing since childhood. Someone told you you're too sensitive. You're not good enough. You have to prove yourself. You have to be strong. And without even realizing it, you wore those words like a second skin. Not because you wanted to, but because you needed to survive. You learned to fit in. You learned to please. You learned to be whoever you needed to be in order to feel safe. And Thoth called that the invisible prison. Not because it has walls, but because you can't even see you're inside it. The practice begins question everything. So where do you begin? You start by watching your thoughts, really watching them. Let's do it now. Think of a belief that's been running your life. Maybe I'm not good enough. I have to work harder. I need to be perfect. Now pause and ask, is that belief really mine? Or did someone hand it to me? Because chances are it didn't come from your soul. It came from your environment, your family, your culture, your past. And the moment you see that a crack forms in the illusion, you start to realize there's a space between who you truly are and what you've been programmed to believe. And in that space, that's where freedom begins. But be ready, the ego will resist. It'll whisper, if you let go of this belief, who will you be? If you stop trying so hard, won't you fall behind? If you let go of control, won't everything fall apart? The ego is terrified of silence, because in silence, the truth speaks. The ego's death, not destruction, but rebirth. And here's what most people get wrong. The ego doesn't need to be killed. It's not your enemy. It just needs to relax, to step aside. Because your ego was built to protect you, to keep you safe. But somewhere along the way, it took over. It started calling the shots. So when you begin this inner clearing, the ego panics. But if you stay with it, if you keep watching, keep breathing, keep letting go of the stories, you'll find something else underneath. A deeper part of you. A stillness, a quiet confidence, a clarity that doesn't need to be loud. And that's when you know, this isn't about becoming anything, it's about returning. Silence becomes sacred. As the layers begin to fall away, something happens to your relationship with silence. What once felt scary now feels sacred. Moments with no answers become spaces of peace. You don't need to impress anyone. You don't even need to impress yourself. For the first time, you're okay with just being. No mask, no performance, no chase. And in that stillness, something ancient begins to stir. A part of you that's been waiting for lifetimes. It doesn't shout, it doesn't push, it doesn't try to prove anything. It just watches, it remembers. And that's the beginning of real magic. The eye that sees without seeing Thoth called this awakening of perception the single eye. Not the physical eye, not your logic, not even your emotion. It's the silent observer, the raw awareness beneath thought, the eye that sees without needing proof. Most of us were taught to use the mind to understand life, to dissect it, judge it, label it. But this ancient eye, it doesn't label, it doesn't divide, it just sees. No past, no future, just now. And when you touch that level of awareness, even for a few seconds, your entire perspective begins to shift. Let's try it right now. Take a moment, right now, close your eyes. No expectations, no effort. Just a few seconds of silence, feel your breath. Let go of the noise. Don't try to do anything. Just be. Diorum, kundirum. Now open your eyes. Maybe it felt like nothing. Maybe something stirred. But here's what matters. You just gave space for your deeper self to breathe. And that's how the single eye awakens, not through words or effort, but through presence. Beneath even that, the soul's true frequency. But even this awareness, the stillness, the presence, it's still not the final layer. Because beyond perception, beyond silence, there's something else. A vibration, a silent sound that lives at the core of your being. The ancients called it the invisible name. Not a name you can speak, not a label, not something you can write or say out loud. It's a frequency, a spiritual signature that only you carry. And when you align with it, when your mind stills and your heart opens, it begins to rise. You don't learn this name, you remember it. It's not given to you, it's uncovered. You've felt this before. You just didn't know what it was. Ever had a moment where everything suddenly felt right for no logical reason? Or an insight that came out of nowhere but felt true at a cellular level? That was it. A flicker of your invisible name. A moment where the noise dropped just long enough for your soul's frequency to whisper through. And here's the key. The more you try to understand this frequency, the more you miss it. It doesn't speak the language of the mind. It vibrates in the body, in the heart, in the stillness. It's the part of you that doesn't need to be anything other than what it is. The light that illuminates everything. When this silent vibration, the invisible name, starts rising within you, something powerful happens. Not only do you begin to remember who you are, you begin to see everything you're not. The light doesn't just reveal beauty. It reveals shadows. It shines into the hidden corners of your soul, and suddenly old fears, buried traumas, outdated beliefs, everything you've suppressed starts surfacing. And that's when many people pull back. Because remembering who you are isn't just about accessing your divine essence. It's also about facing everything you built to survive without it. Every mask, every defense, every belief you clung to just to feel safe. Thoth called this the purification of the soul. And he warned, this isn't punishment. This isn't divine judgment. This is simply the water of truth washing away the dust of illusion. The soul rises to the front. As this inner purification unfolds, something begins to shift. The soul starts to lead. The mind, always in control, starts to loosen its grip. The ego, used to ruling through fear, starts to quiet down. And in that space, consciousness begins to rise, not as a thought, not as a theory, but as a living presence. You begin to walk through the world differently. You don't react, you respond. You don't rush, you move with intention. You don't get swallowed by noise, you remain anchored in silence. Thoth called this state the waking trance. You're fully present, yet slightly detached. It's like watching the world without getting caught in it. You feel more, but you're ruled by less. Everyday enlightenment. This isn't just about moments of mystical insight. This is about how you live, breathe, choose moment to moment. The real test is not accessing this awareness once during a quiet meditation. It's keeping it alive when the noise returns. When life gets messy, when people misunderstand you, when the world is loud, fast, demanding. And this is what Thoth taught: true alchemy doesn't happen in a temple. It happens in traffic, at work, in conversations that would have once triggered you, in moments where silence is a choice, not an escape. The modern mystic's way, Thoth's wisdom, was never about escaping the world. It was about walking through the world with your vibration intact, not reacting blindly, not absorbing everything. So what does that look like? Shouldn't it, one, active silence, not isolation, not withdrawal, but the ability to hold an inner stillness even as the world spins around you. It's the quiet awareness that watches without judgment. 2, conscious choice. Most people react from old conditioning. They don't choose what to think, what to believe, or even how to feel. But the awakened soul chooses. It pauses before responding. It aligns before acting. 3. Mental discernment. Your mind is like a sacred garden. If you don't guard it, weeds of fear, doubt, and noise take over. You begin filtering what you allow in new social media conversations, not from fear, but from sacred protection. Because everything you consume shapes your inner frequency, from temporary state to permanent way. If you stay with these practices, not perfectly, but consistently, something changes. The remembering becomes permanent. It stops being a moment you access and becomes the ground you stand on. It's no longer a spiritual high that comes and goes. It's a quiet, living awareness that stays with you in every situation. You're not waiting to return to your soul anymore. You are the soul living fully in your body and your life in the now. And Thoth called this the return to the source, the journey home. This return isn't about going back in time, it's about returning to the timeless. Because the soul was never born and it never died, it simply forgot. And now through silence, the presence, and purification, it begins to remember. And when you really remember, you stop chasing approval. You stop begging for love. You stop looking for validation. Because the source of all of that was never out there. It was always within. The final realization: you are not broken. You are not incomplete. You are not lost. You've simply been asleep. And now your soul is waking up. And when enough of us remember, really remember, everything begins to change. We stop being slaves to systems that feed on fear. We stop letting pain define our worth. We stop handing over our power to people who never deserved it. Because the awakened soul needs nothing from the world to be free. A call to the awakened. If you've made it this far, it means something inside you has already started to shift. Something ancient, something sacred is stirring. So I ask you, type in the comments, "I remembered who I am." Not just for you, but to show others they're not alone. To send a signal to those still walking through the fog. And if this message moves something in you and you want to help share it, there's a link in the pinned comment where you can directly support this channel. You're not just watching a video, you're part of a movement of remembering, of returning, of living from the soul. And before you go, there's one more step on this journey. A special video is waiting for you. Click on it now and let's keep walking this path together.